So here we have the chart for the absolute OG of meme coins. We have the chart for Dogecoin. Yeah, everyone knows Dogecoin. Really, really interesting. It's been around for what feels like for ages, and I think it's in a really interesting spot. We've always had the Doge to $1. Will it get there? Um, who knows? But I think that there's some really interesting levels to trade on it. So I will go ahead and I will put in our all-time high up here. Make that green. Do we have an all-time low? Yes, we do. It's there. So we'll make that red. And then let's have a look and see what do we have when it comes to levels. So from a monthly level perspective, we have one there. One there. 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 We come across, what do we have? We've got one there. Yeah, and then one there. That one's an interesting one as that's the impulse. So if we go through and just put an M, signify monthly. I think the chart for this looks really interesting because obviously, as we can see, it's started to push back up again. There's still quite a lot of room left on the upside of this. So if we move down onto the weekly, what can we see from a pattern perspective? So we can see pushed up, came down, retested here, and then this was the zone of the original impulse. In terms of levels to aim at, so if we take this, we can move this down slightly, the monthly. You've got a weekly level here just above it. You also have an interesting weekly level there. If we go back across, do we have anything from the first cycle around? We've got this area here. I think there's something at 10 cents there. And yeah, if we move back across, what can we see? So we can see it's pushed back up into this zone here, and we can see that this is quite a high liquidity zone. If we look at some of the candles in this zone, we see the candles move very quickly in this zone. Particularly if we push down onto the daily, this will be a little bit more pronounced. You can see this area here is quite a big liquidity zone. So I will grab this and we can draw out a box there. I'll make this light green. And if we pull that all the way across, you can see big liquidity zone. So it's come in here and it's bounced off. But from a chart perspective, we've got a higher high and a higher high. So the trend is upwards. And as we can see, look, from a line chart perspective, we can see this is moving up and up and up. If we are back onto candles, we will have a look at volume. So if we look at this from a volume perspective, so if we go across, what can we see? So you can see quite a big volume box here. So I will draw that out right above our liquidity zone. So I'll put that grey box there. We also have a zone here. That's an interesting zone where we may potentially get a reaction. You can see we have a little bit of a volume spike here. So if we go across, you may get a reaction there. Should it retrace? Similarly there. You also have another one here. You've got down here the high volume point, so I'll make that line purple down there. And as we can see, we also have this here. Before stuff all the way down here at 10 cents, I think I wouldn't expect it to revisit that zone particularly quickly. We've got some liquidity at the bottom here as well. And then on the upside, what do we have inside this box here? You may get a reaction here at 31 cents. So yeah, if we zoom out, what can we see? I'll draw these boxes all the way across. We can see this big rejection zone for the first cycle, all the way up here on the back of the election. As we can see, it moved all the way down. It consolidated in this area quite nicely, then pushed up, regained this level, pushed up. So I would expect this now from here to potentially have a little bit of action in here to consolidate before pushing up quite quickly through this liquidity zone, potentially getting a rejection out of here, and then a push back down, and then once it revisits here, I can see potentially a little bit of price action in here before it gains the strength to push up into here. And then once it goes past here, you're then looking at some higher targets, potentially sort of this zone here. And should it break through there, you're then looking at a potential retest of the all-time high. And then beyond that, will it get to $1? Potentially so. If we go onto the monthly, we can have a look at what a Fibonacci will say. If we go to Fib and go low to high, what can we see? So you can see these Fib zones line up perfectly with the lines that we had marked out for our reaction zones. If we scroll up, top line $1.20. So yeah, plenty of upside targets. I think the chart looks really interesting. I think the next port of call will be potentially retesting this area here, finding an entry. You can see from a trend perspective, we're still trending upwards. So you'd look at a push through this liquidity zone into here, consolidate here, and then once it pushes out of here, you're then looking at these upward targets and then potentially a sweep of the all-time high.